What's up? Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Roll Pod Reaction. Alabama coming off a 23-21 loss to Oklahoma in Bryant-Denny Stadium in a game where the offense doubles up the yards of Oklahoma's offense, but it was turnovers, it was missed field goals, and kind of everything coming to a head that we've talked about over and over again. Again, I like to go back to that schedule draft. Oklahoma was pinned as a tough matchup from Mike and Alex, and that was more than spot on. Mike, we'll let you kick things off here.
I mean, I predicted Alabama to win, so there's no.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, I'll give it to Alex first because Alex predicted Oklahoma to win
because he predicted they would lose.
Yeah, I kicked myself last year because people who listen to the pod know that I thought they were probably going to lose that game more than any game on the schedule. And I didn't do it. So this year I said, I'm going to go with my gut. And my gut just said this was a terrible matchup for Alabama, especially based on what we'd seen from them in recent weeks, which is just an offense that had become overly reliant on Ty Simpson and too one-dimensional. And against a defense in Oklahoma that had an extra week to prepare and has one of the best defensive minds in college football and is really solid up front. And they did what we expected. They basically took away a lot of Alabama's what they did best. Not many shots downfield, some bright spots running the football, but very limited. And Ty struggled. And when Ty struggles, Alabama can't win. I think it's pretty obvious. Those two turnovers really doomed them. The pick six, obviously, and then the fumble that turns into a field goal. So that's 10 points. That's the ballgame. It was just a night where, as I wrote, it felt like everything sort of came to a head. The sky's not falling for Alabama, but the clouds are looming, and they've got to get some stuff sorted out because, we know what Auburn can look like going into Jordan-Hare, and then who knows after that, whether this team really has, it's a good team. I've said it before. It's a good team. I don't know that it's a great team yet. There are things that maybe they can figure out, but Saturday was definitely not a step in the right direction.
No, I mean, it felt like you saw this coming. If you watched South Carolina, if you watched LSU, if you watched parts of the games before that, a lot of the things that showed up in this game were already there. It's just you overcame them in those previous games. We've been saying for a while, like a missed field goal is probably going to hurt Alabama at some point. Well, they lost by 2, missed a field goal, 3 points. So that right there is one example of where, you just lose those little points and it hurts you in the end. So, the running game, I know there was optimism going into the season that you lose a very prolific running quarterback, Jalen Milroe, and that helps your traditional running game. That Jim Miller is not just a blocker all the time. Well, it still has not worked. And
that narrative feels like a lifetime ago.
I know, but that was like the theory. It was like
I bought into it. I won't lie. Yeah.
And you've lost what was the best part about your running game last year. You could not run the ball with your backs last year. You still can't run the ball with your backs. And now you don't have a quarterback who has that ability. And so when you don't have a quarterback who can run, when you don't have running backs who can effectively run, when your deep ball is still not there, you're entirely relying on your quarterback to complete short and intermediate passes. And you knew going into this game that was going to be tough against this defense and against Brent Venables. And by the way, Oklahoma was missing its best player. Like, let's not forget about that. R. Mason Thomas is probably their best player if you talk to people over there, and he was out for this game. So you're talking about a defense missing its best player, and they still gave Alabama the struggles that they had. So you kind of had the feeling if Ty was going to have multiple turnovers, they were going to be in trouble. If they could limit it to 0 or 1, you'd be in good shape. And I think I said on the podcast Wednesday, like it's when you start getting into multiple that you start getting a little bit concerned, and Oklahoma can force you to have multiple turnovers. And that's what happened here. So you had the interception early and nobody could bring him down. So that's 87 yards of kind of hidden yardage. We talk about the yardage disparity in this game. Those 87 yards don't show up on the stat sheet, but they still counted, for points. Then you had a punt return for 42 yards. It also doesn't show up. So that's another hidden yardage thing. But then you could still overcome that. It was Ty's strip sack that I think you really felt the game turn when Oklahoma had that short field. And I mean, Alabama still held them out of the end zone after that. But that's kind of when you felt like, this might not go very well. And then I think you really got that feeling on Ty's final sack, the 11-yard sack on 1st and 10, when they were at the 44-yard line with 1:59 left. Because at that point, you're thinking you can drive down, maybe score a touchdown, maybe you try your chances with Connor Talty. He makes the field goal. He's carried off on somebody's shoulders. And you thought they had a chance there. And then it's an 11-yard sack.
Yeah.
Where his knee was down before he threw it. And then that just completely screwed you into 2nd and 21, 3rd and 21, and then that 4th and 6. So it's just too many mistakes from Ty. And I agree, like nothing else is working. You are reliant on Ty. I know Kalen resisted that idea a little bit after the game when you asked him about it, but I think it's an accurate depiction of where they stand.
Yeah. And I have a really hard time blaming Ty that much because ultimately, like he's put this team in a position to have 8 wins because he makes these plays in crunch time and, fits these balls into windows that are just impossible. If he's not their quarterback, I don't know what they look like right now, but he's got that thing that Tua had that a lot of like really gifted quarterbacks have that works against them, which is they just don't give up on plays. And he's got to learn to just throw the ball into the ground sometimes and move on. And I get that that's hard to do when you've seen yourself make plays out of nothing. It's hard to do when the clock is so sped up because this offensive line just struggles at times with handling pressure. But at the same time, you've got to know what you are as an offense, and you can't put yourself in those positions. Whether it's throwing that ball, there's a free rusher coming at you in that early interception, like just go down. Just go down. It's okay. I know you don't trust your field goal kicker. I know you don't have much of a running game, but you've got to limit those things. And it's going to be very, 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 very interesting in 2 weeks how he handles all of that at Auburn, because Auburn is talented on defense. And DJ Durkin is going to tell his front seven, pin your ears back and go get the quarterback and make him, make smart decisions with the football. We'll see. I'm not giving up on Ty. I'm not giving up on Alabama by any means, but there was definitely a regression. And that's why, again, like, man, you'd like to see him figure something out to take some of that pressure off of him. But this is what happens when everything's on one player's shoulders.
Just don't throw the ball into the ground like John Mateer did at the end of the game, because that was kind of a gift to Alabama. Granted, they forced the pressure, but you get that ball in the air a little bit if you're Mateer and you avoid the intentional grounding penalty there. Then you have a shot to kick a field goal, and their field goal kicker is lights out. So that would have made it, I think, a 6-point game. And then you're forcing Alabama to go down and score a touchdown, which I said this to Alex, like, what bizarre world were we in on Alabama's final drive when they were running, relying on their running game to set up a game-winning field goal? Like, bizarro world.
I wanted to bring that up too, because watching it in real time, I think they had the ball with, was it 6.5 minutes they started with, or something around
7? It was over 7,
and it felt like they were moving slow in to set up a field goal kick, which I just was, again, like you said, bizarro world. And also, and again, the coaches know better than I do, but your defense is also playing well. So if you do go down and score, your defense has been the calling card. So I don't know if it was. I'm just glad you guys brought that up. I don't know if you have more thoughts on it.
Right.
Just like, what is happening?
I know people are kind of down on Grubb. First of all, I don't even know if that the play calling there is his decision or if that's Kalen's on how to handle that. But I guess that's like the one drive you can question a little bit. I don't think this was a shit on Ryan Grubb game.
Don't tell him message board that.
I was going to say, yeah. I mean, it was 2nd down and 7. They were throwing. Ty had to scramble. He got pressured. 3rd down, he threw. And then it was run to get a 1st down. Another run on 1st down, which I think is fine. And then a pass, and then you're in short yardage, and they were running to get the 1st down. So I don't know. Like, I don't know what I would have done differently in that scenario. It was just, it looked weird because, again, we're watching Jen Miller run the ball, losing in the 4th quarter. It's just,
if you want to get on Ryan Grubb, I think that's the thing. I don't know why James in the game. I really don't. Like, I wrote about it this morning. It's not like Daniel Hill. Daniel Hill's not Derrick Henry. He can compare himself to Derrick Henry all he wants. But he gave a little bit of burst and, he scored a couple touchdowns. First run by an Alabama running back of 25 or more yards since Louisiana Monroe. And that was mop-up duty by A.K. Deere. Like,
yeah,
it's something. And Jam just isn't playing well. It's not, and the problem is it's not just running the football that he's not playing well. He's not giving anything in the passing game, and he's given up a sack in each of the last 2 games. I like the kid. I get why they like the kid. But at a certain point, you just got to be like, look, our only path to contending for any sort of championship is being better at running back. And we've seen 316 career carries from you, and we know what you are. I'm sorry. You got to go to someone else. And right now, Daniel Hill's the only option. I don't throw dirt on Ryan Grubb's grade because I think the personnel on this offense is severely lacking. Severely. Right. But that is one decision that I genuinely don't understand.
And I will say, to Jam's credit, they gave him the ball in 1st and 10 with 5 minutes left, 8-yard gain.
Yeah.
2nd and 2, they gave him the ball next play, 5-yard gain for a 1st down. It was the play after that, 1st and 10 on the 33 with 354 left, 2-yard gain.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where you lost it a little bit. Again, and you lost it even more on the Ty sack if he plays later. But I don't want to get too in the weeds about that particular drive because there was other points in this game where the offense was not completely playing well either.
It's weird. They put up yards, but it didn't feel like they ever got in a rhythm.
Right.
It doesn't ever feel like, man, they're going to, just march down the field. They were just, every drive was sort of excruciating just to get down there. And, is it the culmination of a long season and trying to find answers, and the answers you find defenses account for? Is it a bad week against a good defense? I don't know, but we're going to find out really quickly. And this season's either going to be okay or it's going to be not remembered well.
And Alabama's pretty healthy. That's the thing. It's like they went into this game fairly healthy. Now, I will say Chris Stewart said that to Kalen in his pregame radio interview. And Kalen's response was something along the lines of, there are things that people don't understand, and I wouldn't expect them to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Which I can only, it's like trying to read, Yoda or something, but it's like,
it's what you say when you don't want the SEC asking why you aren't on the injury report.
I guess he's trying to say guys are more banged up than what we're letting on. But at the end of the day, like
every football team,
right? It's November in the SEC, and in terms of like season-ending injuries, you've been very lucky in that regard this year compared to other teams. You haven't had a quarterback injury, which other teams have. Your biggest injury in terms of like a guy missing the season is probably Jeremiah Beeman, or even I guess Jamarian Latham. And are they really missing Quay Rusaw? He didn't play in this game. He was back in uniform. Deshaun Jones didn't play in this game. He was back in uniform. Red Morgan had that pass interference penalty, but other than that, it's not like right. It's not like there was glaring injury issues with this team.
Deontay had another good game. I mean, it's
right
4 in a row now.
The other side had some injury issues. They had their best player not playing. So I don't know, like the whole banged up, it's late in the year thing. It doesn't hold a lot of water to me personally.
Yeah. I want to talk about, you guys kind of hit on it there, but the pass catch just seemed off with the receivers again. I know we've talked about it on Wednesday and last Sunday before in the Roll Pop before that. Rico Scott was getting a lot more playing time than in the past. it just seems off with Horton. Jeremy felt a little bit off. I mean, they hit him a couple big plays in the beginning, but then kind of that. Did it seem like Ty didn't even was going over? I think it was Rico that he missed a wide open Jeremy. It was a walk-in touchdown, but that one seemed off. It's just kind of rambling here, but it just seems.
I'm guessing it would not. I don't know how to track this. I would not be surprised if Ty's percentage of completions on guys who are severely covered is higher than it is against guys who are wide open. It's bizarro world stuff when guys are clearly open and he just sails it over their head. It goes wide right or left. And it's just, as I wrote, it just feels like a mental thing. I don't know if it's guys aren't, there's the off chance that guys aren't running the right route. Like that's always sort of something you can't tell in real time. You can't even really tell by watching the film because you don't know what the depth of every route's supposed to be. But it's just they're not on the same page. And I don't know why.
Mike, any
except for Josh Cuevas.
I don't know if I can boil it down that easily. But look, we know that Ryan's probably been banged up. We knew Jeremy was banged up a little bit in the second half of this game. I have no idea why Rico Scott has not done anything this year, to put it nicely. Hasn't really done anything compared to what we kind of were expecting out of him. Lazier Brooks,
I don't know he hasn't done anything. There's only so many spots on the field, and Lazier Brooks is playing so well you can't take him off the field.
But Rico's playing enough snaps where I feel like he should be catching some more passes. Yeah. I mean, he still plays at least 10 snaps a game at least. Yeah. So, Horton was banged up too. I mean, that's at the end of the year. I think that's what Kalen will probably reference when he asked about the position, is that you had guys that were not fully healthy, but even then, it's not fully working. I'm sure to some degree you're playing better defenses. South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma, better defenses than what you played earlier. There's also more film on you. Teams know how to defend you a little bit better later in the year than they did early in the year. They know your tendencies a little bit better. So, and then I think part of it's just Ty. He said it last week. His mechanics were getting sloppy. And then does it start to get mental with him in terms of missing some of these throws, and is it affecting the next time, et cetera? So I don't know if there's a single thing to get it boiled down to, but he's not playing nearly as well as he was a month ago. You could argue with Ty's best game, his high water mark of the season, was the first half of the Georgia game. They didn't score a single point in the second half. They just held on in the game. The first half of the Georgia game, Ty Simpson looked like a Heisman contender, the Heisman winner. Mm-hmm. Now, about first halves of Georgia games. So it's a little bit similar to last year in that regard. And I think ever since then, there's been little things, a couple things here and there against Vandy. You saw a little bit more against Mizzou. There were maybe a couple things against Tennessee, and then really South Carolina, LSU, and now Oklahoma. You saw kind of that progression downward that you had to peak the first half of the Georgia game, and then ever since then, it kind of leaves him in a spot where he's not in the Heisman race right now. I think that's pretty clear. I still think in terms of the draft, there's not enough good quarterbacks in this draft.
He'll be a first round.
To say that there's people better than him. I think Mendoza is in a better position to go number one, but Ty Simpson could still be one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in this draft, and that leads to him not being here next year. So I don't think the end result is much different for him, but the end result for Alabama might be different if he doesn't kind of return to what he was before over these next couple games.
2 to 3 weeks ago, I would have said play Ty for 3 series against Eastern Illinois, get him out of the game. Now I'm thinking maybe leave him a little bit longer and see if you can sort of create some of that rhythm. And like I said, see the ball go through the net, because that's what it feels like to me. It's just mental, and he's just got to see it happen a few times, and then he'll feel a little bit better about it. Another kind of very subplot, but how much those guys play, how much they're putting the ball in the air. Because ideally you want to get, Keelan Russell and those guys a lot of snaps, but That's not the number one priority. The number one priority is trying to get in the freaking playoff and win some games. And I think you've got to get your offense back on the right track to do that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more on Wednesday, but that's a really interesting storyline to me because I think, yes, you want to get Ty on track. I think you want to do right by Austin Mack, but if you think he's going to transfer, like, are you really going to play him a lot in this game? Are you going to play Keelan under the premise that you want to see and get him ready for next year? Or are you not going to play Keelan because you don't want to put that on film because you don't want to lose him to the portal?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of different angles to look at that quarterback situation from.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get to the defense, you've said put the ball through the net. So I kind of just thought a field goal. You guys have been covering this game for a long time. Have you ever seen a field goal kicker yell at his snapper before like that, and let alone a guy who has not been good?
Yeah.
Have you seen that before? That's kind of just
it's kind of like a situational awareness thing. Like, bro, you don't have the right to yell at anybody.
Right.
Like, you haven't been good enough to do that.
And the snap was down. The snap was, he got it down.
Yeah, like I get it. It's hard on a kicker because you're trying. He had to sort of stop, and his rhythm was off, and that's everything for a kicker. At the same time, like, this is just, it's dreadful. Like, their special teams, I'm sure if they look at some sort of advanced stats, they can tell themselves they're fine. They're not.
No, they don't look good.
Operationally, they just don't even function that well in terms of getting guys on and off the field. Their punting game has been okay, except for the punt return we saw on Saturday.
Well, that's, you talk about the hidden yardage of the kind of the hit. Does a 42-yard kick return, and then they get a field goal out of it. So.
Yeah, it's just so much of it's just off, and like it shows that we're all sort of fallible. We're all sort of human. That they were able to talk themselves into Connor Talty this offseason. What changed? Like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, they took one look at it and said, "We don't trust this. We got to go get Graham Nicholson." Did he really look that good in practice? Because like in the spring, it was like maybe, and then in the fall, it's like, oh, I don't know. In scrimmages, it's not looking great. Like I just don't know why they didn't bring somebody in. I really don't.
It's gotten to the point where I would feel fairly confident in saying Connor Talty won't be on this team next year.
Yeah.
He'll be a redshirt junior next year, if I'm not mistaken.
Sounds right.
Yeah, that'll be his fourth year next year. So I don't think you can do it again. And you already have Peter Notaro, who's on your roster. If you bring in a kicker, which I think you absolutely need to do through the portal, you're not going to have three kickers. So to me, that leads to Connor Talty not being here. And I don't think you can just sit in week one of next year and be like, yeah, Connor Talty's our kicker. Let's see how it works, guys.
Yeah, that was just a bad look. Like,
right.
Yeah, it's not what you want to see. And that's what, to give Kalen and this team credit, when other units have struggled, you haven't seen that. And there have been moments where all that, and to see that sort of bubble up in that moment, like I get the frustration, but man, you got to know that you haven't exactly been Mr. Reliable either.
Yeah, wait the extra 15 seconds and do it in the tunnel if you really need to do that and let whatever. But yeah, that was something I'm like, I haven't really seen that before. The defense, I mean, they keep answering the bell. They time and time again, they're being put in short field situations. They're making plays. They held Oklahoma to a couple field goals where it seemed like the kind of easy touchdowns. Is that kind of your guys' take as well? I thought something that stuck out to me, Damani played a lot, especially in the second half, or really the whole game. That's kind of my main takeaways.
Yeah, let me get the stats on that. I noticed that too. I haven't done the snap counts yet today because I've been lazier than I usually am. But no, I mean, the defense did what they needed to do. I mean, other than that one quick Mateer touchdown run, it kind of felt like the Missouri game. It felt earlier in the season, when Florida State scored real quick.
Mm-hmm.
It was too easy.
Yeah.
And I guess ultimately that's part of the difference in the game as well, but it's also a little bit unrealistic to expect Alabama to have held out Oklahoma from the end zone the whole game. But yeah, the defense is certainly doing what it needs to do. I do think, well, not Auburn. Well, let me say this. Auburn is going to have the best receiver that they've seen all year. and Cam Coleman. They could have the best receiver group that they've seen all year. Can I think of a better one? Can you think of a better one?
That was like kind of goes back to like LSU. It's like in theory,
right.
Like, hey, it's Auburn.
Auburn's quarterback situation is hot garbage, but there's at least a little bit of an element of like you don't know entirely what it's going to look like against Auburn.
Yeah.
This defense against Georgia or A&M in the SEC championship game, I would still question. This defense against Ole Miss, if they had to play them in the playoffs, I would still question a little bit. So I think they've played better. I think you feel good about, especially against the run, it feels like they've tightened that up a lot. You just don't know about the passing game. I mean, they held Satania down pretty well in this game, but Mateer, Nussmeier / Van Buren, and Sellers there's something missing with those guys a little bit in terms of their passing ability. So I'm not 100% sold in the defense, but I think they're playing a lot better, and they absolutely should not be blamed for this game. Like, this is not a defensive game, but we've said that in the past, and then there has been a game later that has been a defensive game. So I'm just a little bit hesitant to be like 2015 Alabama all over.
No,
it's not that.
That's they're
that's the extreme.
They're good. They're not great.
Good. They're good.
They're playing probably better than the sum of their parts. Which again, is why I think you got to give Kane Womack a tip of the cap, because they
why
would you do that?
Board.
Huh? Yeah.
Don't tell our board.
You guys they hate defensive coordinators.
I hate coordinators in general. That's one of the things I noticed ever since I moved here.
Yeah.
Alabama fans and coordinators do not get along. And for the longest time, I thought it was because Nick Saban was infallible, and like you can't ever blame Nick Saban, therefore it has to be blamed on the coordinators. But it's still happening now. I'm like, I don't totally get it, but carry on.
No, they're good. Front seven is stepped up. The defensive lines played better than I thought they would. And a bright spot, again, outside of Yanze, who just continues to play well. Keon Sapp made a few plays, and that was a guy who I kind of kept wondering, when are we going to hear his name called? But he kind of dove into the action and did a really good job. I don't have a ton of thoughts on the defense just because I thought they were solid all the way around. This was just more a game in my mind, about Alabama's offense and special teams and where they sort of let things down. And look, big picture, you lost by 2 points at home to an 11th ranked team. And look, I get it. Everybody panics anytime there's an Alabama loss, but you lost by 2 points to the number 11 ranked team in the country. You've won 8 games. You've beaten 4 ranked opponents. Like, this game isn't the end of the world. It becomes the end of the world if you let it become a problem. If you don't respond to it, if you don't find ways to get better. And, to use a couple Kane Womack phrases, you have to answer for what you put on tape. They've got to do that. And good teams get better as the season goes on. Those 2 things they need to do. They need to answer for what they put on tape, and they need to find a way, even if it's this much, they got to get better in some very key areas, and that's offensive line and running the freaking football.
Yeah. Looking ahead a little bit here, simply put, Alabama needs to beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl to have any sort of chance. But in real time, that game against Georgia was a huge, huge win. And now looking at the scenarios that Mike, you put up, you want to get more into it. We can for a couple minutes, but that could come down to, I guess, strength of schedule over, and then the head-to-head win if it all else fails. But if you want to get into it a little bit more, it seems like Georgia, Alabama, A&M, and Ole Miss are kind of the 4 in waiting, so to speak, I guess, in the final 2 weeks to potentially play in Atlanta. And it goes back to, do you even want to play in Atlanta?
What?
I said it kind of goes back to, do you even want to play in Atlanta? But with the Oklahoma loss, like we said before, it's kind of gets dicey.
Well, if you can beat Auburn and not play in Atlanta, that is – you take that every day of the week.
To some degree. I think, at this point, yes, you'd prefer that. It's also not the likely scenario. I'll put that out there first. Yeah. If Alabama beats Auburn, it is much more likely than not that they will be playing in the SEC championship game. The only scenario that would leave Alabama out if they beat Auburn would be if A&M and Ole Miss both win, which I think is realistic. A&M going to Texas, though, it's still a question. The Egg Bowl is still the Egg Bowl. If they both win, and if other games fall that cause Alabama to lose the conference opponent's record tiebreaker to Georgia in a three-way tie with Ole Miss or A&M. The games in particular that you need to be watching for that are Kentucky and Vandy, Tennessee and Florida, which are both this week, and then Arkansas and Missouri, which are the next week. And Alabama played Missouri, Alabama played Tennessee, Alabama played Vandy. They did not play Kentucky, they did not play Florida, they did not play Arkansas. So if I think it's certain combinations, I think it's basically 2 out of the 3. If Kentucky wins, if Florida wins, if Arkansas wins, it would cause Georgia to win the conference opponent's strength of record tiebreaker and leave Alabama out. So
Florida's
I'm not wearing Kentucky blue, but Alabama fans might. If
Mike is a known Kentucky hater.
Yeah.
Right. If they want to miss the SEC championship game, they should be rooting for Mark Stoops and his bad Kentucky football team to beat Vandy and Diego Pavia. That's part of the equation. Oddly enough, that would flip the SEC championship game. That's how the tiebreakers are written. Even though Alabama has a head-to-head win over Georgia, if they are in a multi-team tiebreaker with Ole Miss or A&M or both, the head-to-head win does not count, does not matter in that tiebreaker because all the tied teams did not play each other, or one of the tied teams did not beat all the others, or one of the tied teams did not lose to all the others. So I know fans are like, how can Alabama lose a tiebreaker to Georgia? That's how. It skips over the head-to-head, and it goes to conference opponent's record, in which case Alabama is likely to have a stronger SEC schedule than Georgia, unless there's some weird results down the end here, including potentially Kentucky beating Vanderbilt. So that's the scenario where Alabama gets left out of the SEC championship game by beating Auburn. In that case, I think you're looking at a borderline home versus road playoff game. And it's going to come down to what happens with Oklahoma. It's going to come down to where does the committee view Notre Dame. It's going to come down to Oregon and USC in that game next week. It's going to come down to Ole Miss. It's going to come down to does the loser of the SEC championship game fall behind you? You don't really know where you would fall in that scenario. To me, I feel like the more likely outcome, again, beating Auburn, missing the SEC championship game, is that you are playing a road playoff game. That could be at Georgia. That could be at A&M. That could be at Ole Miss. That could be at Oregon. That could be at Notre Dame. That could be at Texas Tech. We don't know. There's too many moving parts right now to predict that. But that, to me, would be a tough game. And I don't know if I'm just willing to say that's the better outcome for Alabama relative to going to Atlanta on a neutral field and trying to beat Georgia or A&M. You might have to go on – you might miss the SEC championship game against Georgia and have to go on the road to Georgia instead to play. That is a potential outcome of this. So it is weird as hell, but that's how this new system works. And I can spend 25 minutes talking about it, but Brett, you're right. If you lose to Auburn, you're not making it as a 3-loss team unless some entirely weird shit happens elsewhere. You still have the opportunity right now to focus on the positive, to beat Auburn and to win the SEC championship game, and you are right back to where you were. You were a top 4 seed in the playoff, and you have a first-round bye. So let's also note that.
To focus on the positive is a wild statement coming out of your mouth.
I often say it.
The second thing, everyone should sign up for our website just to support Mike Rodak for the service journalism that he is doing in laying out all these ridiculous scenarios for who will and who will not go to the SEC championship. But I have one response to all of that. It has nothing to do with Mike Rodak. It's complete bullshit. This is stupid. If all of this has to be put in a pot to figure out who's playing for an SEC championship, guess what? It's not a real freaking SEC championship. We talk about, championships matter and it should be decided on the field. And that sounds great. And everything should be in sepia tones because this is pure athletics. It's not real. Everyone's not playing everybody. It's not clearly decided who the 2 best teams are. How do you know who the best team is then? You don't. This should go away. There's no point. If there are tiebreakers that have nothing to do with head-to-head, your tiebreakers don't matter. Your schedule doesn't matter. Your format doesn't matter. End it. End it now because it's stupid. Because you got people going on websites that look like they were made in Soviet era Russia trying to figure out how all these things fit. It's dumb. Alabama's future should not depend on what Kentucky football does. It has nothing to do with it. Nobody's future should depend on that. Probably not even Mark Stoops. End it all. The SEC championship is stupid. I loved it. I loved it for a very long time. Great game. It made a whole lot of sense when there were 2 teams playing for it. It made sense when there were 4. When there are 12, it's a waste of time, and it's one thing and one thing only. It is a shameless cash grab. That's all it is.
Just be glad that the tiebreakers, you're wearing me out, that the tiebreakers do not come down to capped relative scoring margin, because that Soviet era website can't even calculate that. If a particular tiebreaker comes down to the next step, which is capped relative scoring margin, the tiebreaker machine actually tells you that you need to do it by hand because it doesn't even fucking know how to do it. And so
let's get an abacus and let's figure it out. And I love Bill Connolly. Let's let Bill Connolly decide who the SEC champion is. And another thing, we didn't have any problem. We actually still name regular season SEC champions in basketball. Why does it matter? This has only existed for 30 years. There's nothing precious about this. This is not leather helmets and the good old days and apple pie and American football. And it's a construct of a corporation. And that's what the SEC is. We all scream SEC and chant SEC. It's a business corporation. It's trying to make money, and it's wasting all of our time in the process. Go to 9 games. We're doing that. That's great. End the SEC championship. End the charade. It serves no purpose anymore.
I know. I personally want to go to the SEC championship game because Mercedes-Benz Stadium's press box has an ice cream machine.
Yeah,
they have a Dr. Pepper cooler, and they have Chick-fil-A at halftime. Yeah. So that personally is
football games.
That's my memory of covering SEC championship games. Now, I think
relative scoring. What the? Why is that?
I feel like I'm in like calculus class or something.
Yeah, Google it. That's part of the tiebreaker. There's like a 20-page PDF on this. I will say we have left out talking about what I have said for a while is the third rail scenario, which would be Alabama beating Auburn, making the SEC championship game, which I think is the favorite outcome right now, and losing, particularly in a lopsided game, 10, 15, 20 points at least, let's say, to A&M or Georgia, falling to 10-3 on the season. What in the world does the committee do with a 10-3 Alabama team that lost to Florida State, that lost to Oklahoma, and lost by a comfortable margin in the SEC championship game?
They leave them out.
I think they leave them out.
Florida State gets their get back a couple years later.
And you know what? I just ranted because I can't help it anymore about SEC championships and how they should go away. But if you play the game, it happened. It has to count.
Right.
If we're going to sit here and say, as 99% of Alabama fans said, SMU couldn't beat Clemson in the ACC championship, how should they get in? If Alabama loses by double digits in the SEC championship and they've ended the season with 2 losses in a month span, and they still have that Florida State loss hanging on their head, and there are 2-loss SEC teams that have played strong schedules, that breaks. Yeah. And if you don't want to do it, and you're Greg Byrne, you go to Greg Sankey and you say, get rid of this game. It's helping nobody but you.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If that happens, if Alabama finishes 10-3, loses the SEC championship game by a comfortable margin, I mean comfortable for the other team, then, and if they get left out by the committee, I think Greg Byrne will raise hell. I think Greg Sankey will raise hell with the committee. But Oklahoma, who missed the SEC championship game, beat you.
Yeah.
Ole Miss only has 1 loss on the road pretty close to Georgia. You're not leaving one of those teams out in favor of Alabama. Notre Dame's losses will be better than your losses. Like, there's an argument to be made.
It's like last year all over again.
Right. There's an argument to be made
are better. God,
that would happen.
I love college football. I hate college football at the same time.
I hate college football this time of year because it's only getting started, first of all. But that first week of December is absolute hell. But that right now is probably the most likely outcome. Alabama is going to be favored to win the Iron Bowl. They're most likely going to play in the SEC championship game, and they're probably going to be an underdog in that game.
Yeah.
So right now we're talking about the most probable scenario that could happen and what does happen if that happens.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. If the SEC championship game loser gets left out by playing a 13th game, the SEC is going to have to seriously consider getting rid of that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Like Alex said, or go ahead.
I was just going to say, Greg said he's going to put a full frontal assault on the college football playoff.
Yeah. Yep.
All to save that game because it makes $1 zillion. And that's the only thing that goes directly into the SEC's pockets. Just remember that. That's the only reason this game exists.
Yeah.
Is because it's the only thing they control.
Like Alex said.
One more thing.
Yeah.
What if Vandy beats Tennessee? So then you have a 2-loss Vandy team that's hanging around too. Like, and here's the thing.
At that point, if it's Ole Miss versus Alabama, and we're going down this road, and there's no head-to-head, I won't sit here and say that the committee screwed it up.
No, Ole Miss absolutely.
If there is a head-to-head and the team that lost to Alabama gets in, blow the whole thing up. Every single piece of it, blow the committee up, blow the SEC championship, you blow it all up. Because again,
the 64 team playoff.
The only thing that matters is head-to-head.
Yeah.
In all things. So figure out a format, wherever the hell that is. That is one A, B, and C on your list of things that you can.
And if Alabama does get in under that scenario, you're absolutely playing a road game. I don't see a scenario where you're a 5 through 8 seed with 3 losses. Yeah. That would be insane. No. So you're playing on the road at the same list of schools that I listed before, and that's, again, good luck with some of those games. Those are tough games.
Oregon's staying stuck in my brain right now. That maybe a cool trip for you guys, but that
my nephew goes to Oregon, so
there you go. You might need to bring a whiteboard with like a web or a diagram or something on the next, just to be like
bring a blowtorch.
Steve Kornacki. You can be like Steve Kornacki and all the.
I mean, I have shown my printer on this show before,
yeah,
and I don't have anything to show on my printer this time, but I forget what was the context of that.
I don't know. You should bring more props on this podcast.
Yeah,
you've kind of stopped with that.
Yeah, it's lacking.
You showed images and you played songs, and
I don't have anything in front of me right now.
It's okay.
To show on a TV screen.
Like Alex said, the sky is not falling, but the clouds are coming in. And again, to what Alex said too, they're 8-2. They lost the game by 2 points to the number 11 team in the country at home. Yes, at home, but they still have 4 ranked wins. Everything is still ahead of them. Mm-hmm. You got to go win at Auburn. But yeah, and we'll get into it next week. But there's a lot of storylines about playing time and snaps and opportunities against Eastern Illinois. And like you said, it was maybe Ty plays three series and leaves, but no, you got to get him kind of back in rhythm. So that's all going to be interesting. Anything else before we wrap it up? Or are we all good? Mike, Alex, and Mike, another scenario, anything like that? I will say, Florida's not being Tennessee, but we'll just that's
Florida's weird, man.
Yeah.
They do some weird stuff.
You're right, but
they played Georgia tough. They beat Texas. They played Ole Miss tough. They completely shit the bed against, was it Kentucky?
Yep.
Like, I have no idea what Florida is.
Who's their coach going to be?
Right.
Maybe Lane will be signed by then. I don't know. Depending on the Florida boards, Lane's already signed, sealed, and delivered. Like, it's just delusional. All right, I'm
clicking the Titans head coach.
Yeah, there we go. Sexton's the happiest person in the world right now with every passing day. Thank you, guys.